All right, Chapter 10. Gnomes under my bed, what high school means to me, my outfit, smelling trouble, seniors in charge, duct tape. Before we knew it, our first meet, the Washington Central Hokum Carum, was a week away. My legs still felt like gnomes were crawling out from under my bed and pounding on them with picks and hammers every night while I slept. But I was getting used to it. I half believed in them as they did such a thorough job every night. In spite of the pain I felt at the start of every run, I'd left Squid, Popeye, and Chavez behind and hung with Hyder and Keen every day, even when it got tough. Coach's breakdown had done its job. Sticking with those guys every day, I felt my self-esteem begin to creep back up to where it ought to have been. Somewhere about halfway between feeling I was a pile of dog shit and, on the other end of the spectrum, feeling that I ought to be crowned king of cross-country for all eternity, before I'd even finished a 5K race. A shoe-in for the next Olympic 5,000 meters. My self-esteem would soon come crashing down again, although this time it was different. This time my fellow bluebirds experienced it with me, which in the end somehow made all the difference. The bottom fell out again on the first day of high school. High school started in September, and the very word made me think certain exciting thoughts. When I heard September, I thought of eraser dust, foxy dressed-up girls glowing with summer tans, the sound of lockers slamming, the overcooked, overheated smell of school food. I dreamed of cool nights with my window open and the melancholy charms of autumn just around the corner. I really didn't spend a lot of my adolescence in the concrete world most people would call reality. A case in point was my first day of high school outfit. I dreamed that it had huge significance. It was the keystone in an entire architecture I had planned out for my high school years. Therefore, a misstep in appearance on my first day of school was unthinkable. I'm a little ashamed to admit that I'd laid out my clothes and played mix and match with my ensemble from the middle of August all the way up until I went to bed that momentous Sunday night, my last night in my mind as a child. This was probably when my dad began to fear that I was gay. He acknowledged this fear to me years later, a crooked grin on his face, as we sat on two bar stools, drinking cold ones and talking about my impending marriage to a beautiful woman. It was, at last, the moment when he knew he was surely out of those particularly troubling woods for a father. My first day attire consisted of a nice thin sweater, pale yellow, over a white Lacoste golf shirt. I admit it, I was a preppy, which, for an old-school guy like my father, was clearly on the gay spectrum. I had a slick-looking pair of khakis laid out that I'd never worn before, and my brand-new blue and white checkerboard Vans slip-ons gave the whole look a little bad boy, stoner, surfer twist that was the icing on the cake. The shoes make the outfit, they say, so I was set. I was set, that was, until Coach ruined it for me, and I ended up sitting through the first day of high school in my embarrassingly high-cut Adidas running shorts, a completely stinky pit-stained t-shirt, and my blue and silver Tigers, the same clothes and shoes I'd worn to morning practice that day. That was the fate of all the freshmen on the cross-country team. And Squid. The day began well, actually. I had my ensemble nicely folded in my gym bag. Hyder had his. I'd made sure he wasn't going to wear his favorite yellow-brownish, once-upon-a-time white t-shirt on the first day of school. So I'd have at least one day when I couldn't be mistaken for a complete dirtball. Mom dropped us off outside the locker room just after dawn, around 6 a.m. It was early, but I was wide awake and excited, it being the first day of my life as a high schooler and all. Hyder and I walked down the steps to the locker room and went in to find we were among the last to arrive. All the other guys sat in a U around the chalkboard where Coach normally posted the workouts by group. On that day, however, the chalkboard was blank. I have always had a bit of a sixth sense for trouble. Some people have it, some don't. Some guys always leave the party right before the cops show. Some guys don't go through with the stupid physical dare that ends up with a broken collarbone. Some guys have a knack for smelling when things are going to go badly, and I, luckily, am one of those guys. On that morning, I smelled trouble immediately. It had something to do with the fact that there was nothing on the board, But it had more to do with the looks on the seniors' faces. They weren't grinning madly, nothing obvious like that. They didn't glare at us like we were about to be tortured, like gerbils in the hands of a sadistic 10-year-old. It was subtler than that. In fact, it was a conspicuous effort on their part to look as if nothing unusual was about to happen that let me know something was dangerously amiss. I stared at Bowden. No eye contact. Normally I'd have gotten a head nod at least, but on this particular morning, nothing. Slade, I noticed, was whistling an upbeat song. He never did that. Slade either complained about something, or he sat with his Walkman on full blast, drowning out the world with Black Sabbath, Metallica, Anthrax, or, if he was feeling lighthearted, Van Halen. Today he was neither complaining nor was he escaping into his music. I suddenly felt like a cow must feel as it heads for the slaughter room to be turned into steaks. Definitely uneasy, bordering on alarmed, but entirely unsure why and totally clueless as to what to do about it. Then Coach came in, eyes down. That was no good either. No braying East Coast chit-chat, no small talk. On that first day of school, instead of his typical banter, Coach simply walked in, picked up the chalk from the little ledge on the chalkboard, and wrote, "Have a great day." Then he looked at what he'd written and underlined it, apparently deciding the exclamation point wasn't quite enough oomph. Then he turned and faced us. The Eagles were especially eager and ready to listen. "Seniors are in charge today," he said curtly, a fishy little smile on his face. "I'll see all you this afternoon." And then he turned and went back to his office. I can't remember if Leonardo Chavez crossed himself at that point, but he should have. Bowden, the senior we'd all come to trust, the senior who cared for us and let us in on the inside secrets we needed to know, stood and took center stage in front of the chalkboard. I saw he had a roll of duct tape in his hand. This was beyond alarming. "Bluebirds," he said in his calm, soft voice, "you have 30 seconds. And an evil smirk I didn't think him capable of took over his kind face. His big Adam's apple bobbed in his neck. "Aw, man," whined Squid. "You mean I have to go through with this again? I'm a sophomore." "You're a bluebird," said Swart accusingly, aggressively even. He was pointing at him from across the way. "That's your fault. You didn't have to be a bluebird again. It was a choice." "He's not even a bluebird. He's a fruit salad," said his senior with a face full of acne and a mop of greasy hair, a kid named Chad Yost, who never seemed quite fast enough to break through to the varsity 7, but who trained as hard as anyone and was therefore resentful of those who didn't try as hard as he did. This included just about everyone else on the team. Yost's beady eyes were barely visible through his dingy hair. "Bluebirds and fruit salad," he went on in a cruel croak of a voice. "You better run." "That's not fair," Squid said. "The fair was in August," said Bowden coolly. "It's now September." He tossed his roll of tape from one hand to the other. "You're all down to 15 seconds. And with that, Squid decided the time for arguing was over and took off as fast as I'd ever seen him run, up the steps and out of the locker room. 10, 9, 8, counted Bowden. The other seniors had duct tape as well, I saw. The juniors and sophomores were all smiling grimly. Although they didn't hold rolls of tape, they were clearly on the right side of this particular equation. "Let's get the hell out of here," said Chavez, and we all bolted up the steps after Squid.